Why most people stay broke even if they work hard. Imagine waking up tomorrow and finding $100,000 sitting in your bank account. Most people would think their financial problems are over. They'd imagine luxury vacations, a new car, a nicer apartment, and finally being able to stop worrying about money. But what if I told you that simply having money isn't enough? What if I told you that millions of people spend their entire lives working hard, earning decent incomes, and still never become wealthy? The truth is that there is a hidden game being played with your money every single day, a game controlled by taxes, banks, inflation, debt, investing, and time. Most people never learn the rules, which is why they spend decades running on a treadmill while a small percentage of people quietly build wealth. Today, we're going to break down exactly how the financial system works and why understanding it can completely change your future. The first thing that happens when you earn money is that somebody else wants a piece of it. You wake up early, commute to work, deal with customers, meetings, deadlines, or whatever your job demands. At the end of the week or month, you receive your paycheck. But if you've ever looked closely at that paycheck, you already know something strange happened. The amount you earned isn't the amount you received. Before your money even reaches your bank account, taxes have already taken their share. Federal taxes, state taxes, social security taxes, Medicare taxes. It's like ordering a pizza and discovering that several slices disappeared before the box arrived at your house. Governments argue that taxes are necessary because they fund roads, schools, emergency services, infrastructure, and countless public programs. Whether you love taxes or hate them, the reality is that they are one of the first financial forces you'll encounter in life. Every dollar you earn enters the system carrying less value than you originally created because part of it is immediately redirected elsewhere. Once your money survives taxes, it usually ends up in a bank. Most people believe banks are giant vaults designed to protect money. Movies show enormous steel doors, security guards, and stacks of cash sitting safely behind reinforced walls. While banks do provide security, their real purpose is much more interesting. Banks don't make money by storing cash. They make money by moving cash. When you deposit money into a bank account, your funds don't simply sit there waiting for you. Banks use those deposits to issue loans, fund mortgages, finance businesses, and support countless financial transactions happening around the economy. In other words, your money becomes fuel for someone else's opportunity. The bank acts like a giant middleman, connecting savers and borrowers while taking a profit in the process. This brings us to one of the most important concepts in finance: interest. Interest is essentially the price of money. If you want to borrow someone else's money, you pay interest. If someone wants to use your money, they may pay you interest. At first glance, it seems simple, but interest has the power to completely transform someone's financial future. Imagine borrowing $10. Over time, you may end up paying back $12,000, $13,000, or even more, depending on the interest rate. Nothing physically changed. You didn't receive additional products or services. Time alone increased the amount you owed. That's the power of interest. For borrowers, it can feel like a financial burden. For investors, it can become a wealth-building machine. The same force that traps people in debt is the exact force that creates millionaires. The real magic happens when interest begins earning interest. This is called compound interest. and it has often been described as one of the most powerful forces in the world. Imagine planting a tree. The first year, it grows slowly. The second year, it grows a little faster. But eventually, the branches expand, new seeds appear, and growth begins, creating more growth. Compound interest works the same way. Your money earns returns, then those returns begin earning returns of their own. Over enough time, the effect becomes extraordinary. What starts as a few $100s can eventually grow into thousands, tens of thousands, or even millions. The challenge is that compound interest requires patience, and patience is something most people struggle with in a world obsessed with instant gratification. While many people worry about debt and interest, there is another financial force quietly working in the background every single day: inflation. Inflation is often called the silent thief because it steals value without anyone physically taking money from your wallet. Imagine putting $100 under your mattress and leaving it there for 20 years. When you return, the $100 bill is still there. It hasn't disappeared, yet somehow it buys much less than it once did. The money remained the same, but its purchasing power declined. Inflation slowly increases the price of goods and services over time. Groceries become more expensive. Housing becomes more expensive. Transportation becomes more expensive. Even everyday items like coffee, gas, and fast food become noticeably more costly. Inflation is why many people feel like they're working harder while getting less in return. To fight inflation, governments and central banks often manipulate interest rates. When inflation rises too quickly, borrowing becomes more expensive. Loans become harder to obtain, spending slows down, and economic activity cools. It's similar to a thermostat controlling temperature inside a house. If the economy gets too hot, policymakers attempt to cool it down. If the economy becomes too cold, they try to stimulate spending and growth. The problem is that economic systems are incredibly complex. Sometimes these interventions work, sometimes they create entirely new problems. Regardless, the average person usually experiences the consequences through higher prices, changing job markets, and fluctuating investment values. This leads us to investing, which is one of the most misunderstood concepts in personal finance. Many people believe investing is gambling. They picture stock traders screaming into phones, charts flashing across computer screens, and people randomly guessing which stocks will go up. In reality, investing is simply the act of putting your money into assets that have the potential to grow over time. Instead of allowing inflation to slowly erode your purchasing power, investing gives your money an opportunity to work for you. Stocks represent ownership in businesses. Bonds represent loans made to governments or corporations. Real estate provides ownership of physical property. Index funds allow investors to own small pieces of many different companies at once. Each investment carries risks, but they also provide opportunities for long-term growth. One of the biggest differences between wealthy people and average people is how they think about money. Most people focus entirely on income. They ask, how much money can I make? Wealthy people often focus on ownership. They ask, what can I own that will continue producing value? This mindset shift changes everything. A person working a traditional job exchanges time for money. If they stop working, their income stops. An investor, business owner, or asset holder can continue generating income even while sleeping. That's why ownership plays such a critical role in wealth creation. Wealthy people aren't necessarily smarter or harder working than everyone else. They simply understand how to position themselves on the side of the financial system that benefits from growth rather than being consumed by it. Another concept that confuses many people is credit. A credit score is essentially a reputation score for borrowing money. It tells lenders how likely you are to repay debts based on your financial history. What's interesting is that a credit score isn't necessarily a measure of wealth. Someone can have a high income and a poor credit score. Another person can have a modest income and an excellent score. Credit scores reward responsible borrowing behavior, consistent payments, and financial reliability. The higher your score, the easier it becomes to qualify for loans, mortgages, and favorable interest rates. While some people view credit scores as an unfair game, understanding the rules allows you to use the system to your advantage. Perhaps the most important lesson in finance is understanding value. Money itself isn't inherently valuable. $100 bill is simply paper with symbols printed on it. Its value comes from collective belief. Society agrees that it represents purchasing power. The same principle applies to businesses, products, and services. People become wealthy when they create something others perceive as valuable. A company like Apple became one of the most valuable businesses in the world because millions of people willingly exchanged money for products they wanted. A doctor earns income because patients value medical expertise. An entrepreneur earns income because customers value the solution being offered. Wealth ultimately flows toward value creation.